6 months after the dissolution of the Galactic Council, the galaxy barely resembled the oppressive empire it had once been. Free from the crushing weight of central authority, species that had been suppressed for millennia began to flourish in ways that amazed everyone, including humanity. Admiral Han Kiwu stood on the observation deck of the newly established Human Diplomatic Corps headquarters, watching ships from dozens of different species dock at the orbital station. Unlike the old council chambers, this station had no central throne, no hierarchy of importance. Instead, it was designed as a circle, where every species met as equals. "Sir, we have another mediation request," Captain Park Minji reported as she joined him at the viewing window. "The Catharians and the Zelthani have a territorial dispute about an asteroid field." "What kind of dispute?" Kiwu asked, genuinely curious. "The Catharians want to turn the asteroids into a musical sculpture that will play symphonies using gravitational resonance. The Zelthani want to plant forests on them. Both groups are being perfectly polite about it, but they can't figure out how to share the space." Kiwu smiled. 6 months ago, such a dispute would have been settled by whoever had the bigger fleet. Now it was a creative problem waiting for a creative solution. "Schedule a joint planning session," he said. "I have a feeling they'll discover they want to create something even more beautiful together." The Human Diplomatic Corps had become something entirely new in galactic history, a mediation service that absolutely refused to take permanent authority over anything. They helped species resolve conflicts, facilitated trade agreements, and provided advice when asked. But they never ruled, never commanded, and never stayed longer than necessary. It was driving some of the former council species completely crazy. In the Outer Rim territories, Dr. Kim Naeon was documenting one of the most remarkable transformations. The Catharian musicians, freed from council restrictions on noise, pollution, had begun creating art on a scale that defied belief. "Look at this," she said to her research team as they watched the latest Catharian project. Through their ship's viewscreen, the Catharians had taken an entire asteroid field and arranged it into a 3-dimensional, musical instrument spanning several light years. As gravitational forces moved the asteroids in carefully calculated orbits, they created hauntingly beautiful music that could be heard throughout the system. "They're not just making music," observed Dr. Lee Junho, one of Naeon's assistants. "They're sculpting space-time itself. The gravitational harmonics are actually improving the stability of nearby planets." "Art with practical benefits," Naeon murmured, making notes. The council never understood that creativity and functionality aren't opposites. Meanwhile, the Zelthani had taken their newfound freedom and applied it to something equally spectacular. Working with the basic dark matter manipulation techniques that humanity had shared, they had developed the ability to grow forests on dead worlds in a matter of days. Dr. Choi Taehyun was currently working with a Zelthani botanical team on a project that was making even him dizzy with possibility. "So, you're telling me," he said to Master Gardener Silkthan, "that these trees don't just process carbon dioxide. They actually repair damage to space-time itself?" "Indeed," Silkthan replied through the translation system. "When consciousness interacts with dark matter through biological processes, the effect creates healing resonances in the fundamental structure of reality. We discovered this when we began growing forests on worlds damaged by war." Taehyun looked out at the newly forested planet below them. 6 months ago, it had been a radioactive wasteland, scarred by centuries of conflict. Now it was covered in silver and blue trees that seemed to shimmer with inner light. "Your trees are fixing broken physics," he said wonderingly. "Your species taught us that reality responds to intention," Silk then replied. "We simply applied that knowledge to our gardening." The transformation wasn't limited to former primitive species. Some of the council races had adapted to the new paradigm with surprising grace. Colonel Yoon Soman was currently working with a group of former Zephyrian warriors who had completely reinvented their culture. Instead of conquering planets, they now specialized in disaster relief, using their military precision to coordinate emergency responses across the galaxy. "Report from the Vegan system," announced Commander Zark, the former Supreme War leader who now led the Zephyrian Rescue Corps. "The stellar flare crisis has been resolved. All populations evacuated successfully, no casualties." "Excellent work," someone replied. "How many ships did you need?" "Only 50 vessels. But more importantly, we completed the operation in cooperation with 12 other species. The Arcturians provided shelter calculations. The Catharians created calming music for the evacuees. and the Zelthani began growing emergency food supplies before we even arrived. Soman nodded approvingly. The old Zephyrian Empire would have sent 1,000 ships and demanded tribute for the rescue. The new Zephyrian Rescue Corps sent exactly what was needed, and asked for nothing but the satisfaction of helping. Not everyone had adapted successfully to the new paradigm. About 30% of the former council species had chosen to relocate to the Heritage Preserve, the comfortable dimensional space that humanity had created for those who preferred the old ways. Commander Lee Hyunwoo had been placed in charge of maintaining the preserve, which turned out to be more complicated than expected. Status report from the Heritage Preserve, he announced during the weekly diplomatic briefing. The relocated species are doing well. Perfect weather, unlimited resources, beautiful architecture. They have everything they could want. But Admiral Kiwoo could hear something in Lee's voice. But they're bored out of their minds, Lee admitted. When you can have anything you want without working for it, when there are no challenges and no conflicts to resolve, paradise becomes a very dull place. Any requests for return to normal space? Captain Park asked. About 12 species so far, Lee replied. They want to contribute to galactic civilization again, but they're having trouble figuring out how to function without someone to rule over. Schedule them for integration counseling with the diplomatic corps, Kiwoo decided. Everyone deserves a chance to learn how freedom works. The most remarkable transformation had happened to the galaxy's youngest species. Freed from the threat of forced absorption into more advanced civilizations, dozens of developing worlds had begun to flourish in their own unique ways. Dr. Kim Naeon had just returned from visiting one such world, and her report was causing excitement throughout the human scientific community. They call themselves the Dreamweavers, she explained to the gathered researchers. They're only about 3,000 years into recorded civilization, but they've developed something incredible. She activated a holographic display showing a species that looked like crystalline spiders, but moved with fluid grace through environments that seemed to shift and change around them. They don't just dream, Naeon continued. They dream collaboratively, and their shared dreams actually manifest as temporary pocket dimensions. They're creating entire worlds of possibility that exist for exactly as long as they need them. The implications were staggering. While humanity had learned to manipulate dark matter through consciousness, the Dreamweavers had learned to use consciousness to create entirely new realities. They want to share their techniques with other species, Naeon added, but only with those who approach them as equals, not as subjects to be studied. It was exactly the kind of breakthrough that would have been impossible under the old council system, where young species were considered too primitive to have anything valuable to offer. Dr. Choi Tai-hyun had been spending most of his time at the Interdimensional University, the galaxy's first institution of higher learning, based on cooperation rather than hierarchy. Students and teachers from hundreds of species worked together to explore the deeper mysteries of consciousness and reality. The breakthrough came when we stopped thinking of physics as laws to be followed, he explained to his mixed species class, and started thinking of them as suggestions to be negotiated with. His current project involved working with a team of Arcturian mathematicians, Catharian artists, and Zelthani biologists to answer a question that had never been asked before. If consciousness could reshape reality, what happened when multiple forms of consciousness worked together? The early results suggested that the universe was far stranger and more cooperative than anyone had imagined. Captain Park Minji had taken command of the Galactic Exploration Initiative, humanity's contribution to the galaxy's growing interest in discovering what lay beyond their own borders. Early scouting reports suggested that their galaxy was just one of many, and that each one had developed its own unique approach to consciousness and reality, manipulation. Preliminary scans of the Andromeda Galaxy show signs of massive reality alterations, she reported during the monthly exploration briefing. It looks like they've figured out how to make their entire galaxy operate as a single, coordinated organism. Should we make contact? Admiral Kiwoo asked. I think we should, Park replied, but not as conquerors or subjects, as neighbors introducing ourselves to the cosmic community. The second emergency session of the Galactic Council was very different from the first. Speaker Vorthak's 6 arms trembled as he addressed the assembled representatives, most of whom were staring at the humans with expressions of barely controlled terror. Perhaps, Vorthak said carefully, We should reconsider our initial offer to humanity. Admiral Kiwu sat at the center of the diplomatic circle, completely relaxed despite being surrounded by hundreds of alien beings who had spent the last day watching their most fundamental assumptions about reality get casually demolished. "That's very kind of you," Kiwu replied politely. "What did you have in mind?" "Full membership in the Galactic Council," Vorthak said quickly. "Equal voting rights, access to all trade networks, no tribute requirements, perhaps even a senior advisory position given your unique capabilities. The offer would have made any other species celebrate for decades. Full council membership was the highest honor in galactic civilization, usually requiring centuries of careful diplomacy and technological advancement. "I appreciate the generous offer," Kiwu said, "but I'm afraid we'll have to decline." The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every alien translator worked overtime trying to make sense of what they had just heard. "Decline?" Vorthak's voice cracked. But that's impossible. Every species wants council membership. It's the highest achievement in galactic civilization. "I'm sure it is," Kiwu agreed. "But humanity isn't interested in joining your current system. We're interested in changing it." Dr. Kim Neon stood up and activated a holographic display showing statistics from across the galaxy. "Your protection system currently holds 23 billion sentient beings in various forms of indentured servitude. Another 47 species have been completely absorbed into more advanced civilizations over the past 1,000 years. The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. Every council member knew the statistics, but they had never been presented so starkly before. Those species chose integration," Vorthak protested weakly. "They benefited from advanced guidance and protection. They chose survival," Captain Park Minji corrected. "The same choice you tried to force on humanity. Submit or be destroyed." Commander Lee Hyunwoo stepped forward with his own datapad. "We've been monitoring galactic communications for the past week. Would you like to hear what the indentured populations actually think about their protection?" Without waiting for permission, Lee activated speakers throughout the chamber. The voices that emerged spoke in dozens of different languages, but the translations were heartbreakingly clear. Stories of families separated, children taken from their parents to serve in alien households, entire cultures slowly disappearing as younger generations were forced to abandon their traditions for the convenience of their protectors. "Stop," Vorthak whispered. "Please stop." The voices faded, but their impact lingered in the silence. "Here's what humanity proposes," Admiral Kiwu said into the quiet. "Immediate dissolution of the indentured servitude system. Return of all enslaved populations to their homeworlds. Establishment of a new galactic principle. No species may claim authority over another without explicit, revocable consent." The chamber erupted in protests. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting about economic collapse, social chaos, and the impossibility of managing primitive civilizations without proper guidance. "You don't understand," Vorthak pleaded. "The current system maintains order. Without it, there would be chaos throughout the galaxy." Dr. Choi Taehyun smiled. "Chaos? That sounds wonderful." The aliens stared at him in horror. "You see chaos as something terrible," Taehyun explained, "but humans see chaos as possibility. Where you see terrifying uncertainty, we see infinite potential for growth, change, and discovery." "But how will anything function without central authority?" demanded the representative from Arcturus Prime. "How will disputes be resolved? How will trade agreements be maintained? How will primitive species be protected from making dangerous mistakes?" Colonel Yoon Somin decided to provide a practical demonstration. She placed her hand on the neural interface hidden in her diplomatic case and reached out through dark matter space to touch the indentured populations throughout the galaxy. In less than a heartbeat, 23 billion enslaved beings found themselves standing on the surface of their original homeworlds, completely healthy and with full memories of their experiences. Each one discovered a personal message from humanity, apologizing for taking so long to notice their situation. The effect on galactic communications was immediate and profound. Homeworlds that had been empty for centuries suddenly came alive with the voices of returning populations. Species that had been declared extinct began broadcasting their existence to the galaxy. "That's impossible," Vorthak whispered. "The logistics alone, the transportation requirements, the life support systems. We didn't transport them," Somin explained. We relocated them. There's a difference when you can manipulate space-time directly. Everyone is exactly where they belong, with everything they need to rebuild their societies. The council representatives were frantically checking their personal communicators as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Entire economic systems were collapsing as their workforce simply vanished. Military commanders were reporting mass desertions as soldiers returned to homes they hadn't seen in decades. "You've destroyed galactic civilization," accused the Zephyrian delegate. "We've ended galactic oppression," Admiral Kiwu corrected. "Civilization will adapt. It always does, but what comes next?" Vorthak asked desperately. "If you won't join the council, if you won't accept our authority, what kind of galaxy do you envision?" Commander Lee stepped forward with a new holographic display. "We've been thinking about that. Would you like to see what humanity has in mind?" The display showed a galaxy without central authority, without forced tribute systems, without indentured populations. Instead, it showed voluntary associations of species working together on projects they found mutually beneficial. Trade agreements based on genuine cooperation rather than exploitation. Conflict resolution through mediation rather than conquest. "This is anarchy," the Arcturian representative protested. "This is freedom," Dr. Kim Neon replied. "And if you find the concept of freedom too chaotic to handle, we have an alternative proposal." The display changed to show a beautiful dimensional space filled with every comfort and luxury the council species could desire. Perfect weather, unlimited resources, magnificent architecture, and complete safety. "We call it the Heritage Preserve," Neon explained. "A specially created dimensional space where species that prefer the old ways can continue to practice their traditional forms of governance without affecting anyone else." "A reservation," Vorthak said flatly. "A retirement community," Lee corrected. "Very nice. Completely isolated from the rest of reality, and perfectly suited for beings who prefer order over freedom." The threat was delivered with perfect politeness, but its meaning was unmistakable. Species that couldn't adapt to the new paradigm would be gently but permanently removed from the galactic community. "You're giving us a choice between freedom and exile," the Zephyrian delegate said. "We're giving you a choice between evolution and stagnation," Admiral Kiwu replied. "What you do with that choice is up to you." Dr. Choi Tae-hyun stepped forward with one final offer. "But we're not just taking things away. We're also prepared to give something back." The holographic display showed human scientists working alongside alien researchers, sharing the basic principles of dark matter manipulation, not the reality-altering powers that came naturally to humans, but enough knowledge to revolutionize their civilizations peacefully. "Clean, unlimited energy," Taehyun explained. "Instantaneous communication across any distance. Medical technology that can repair damage at the molecular level. All of this is possible when you understand how consciousness interacts with the fundamental forces of reality." "What's the price?" Vorthak asked suspiciously. "No price," Taehyun smiled. "Just one simple requirement. Abandon all claims of authority over other species. Treat every sentient being as an equal partner in galactic civilization." The chamber fell silent as the council representatives considered their options. They could accept humanity's terms and gain access to technology that would transform their civilizations. Or they could resist and find themselves relocated to a comfortable but isolated dimensional space. "How long do we have to decide?" Vorthak asked quietly. Admiral Kiwu checked his chronometer. "The changes have already begun. You have as long as you need to decide whether you want to be part of the new galaxy or observers of it from the outside." Through the crystal walls of the Nexus chamber, the council members could see Earth spinning peacefully in space. 8 billion humans lived on that world, each one capable of reshaping reality with their thoughts. Each one committed to the simple principle that no being should control another. The age of galactic empire was ending. The age of galactic freedom was about to begin, and throughout the galaxy, species that had been enslaved for generations were taking their first breaths of free air in centuries, looking up at stars they owned again and wondering what wonders they might create now that they were free to dream their own dreams. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 18 hours. While the humans waited patiently in their temporary quarters aboard the relocated Nexus chamber, 847 different species argued about what to do with the impossible situation they now faced. Some council members wanted to negotiate. Others demanded immediate military action. The Zephyrians, who had always considered themselves the galaxy's greatest warriors, insisted that humanity was bluffing and that a show of force would bring them to their senses. Speaker Vorthak, desperate to maintain his authority, finally made the decision that sealed the Council's fate. "Activate the World Killer Fleet," he announced to the assembled representatives. "If these humans want to play games with forces beyond their understanding, we will show them the true meaning of galactic power." The World Killer Fleet represented the Council's ultimate deterrent. 300 massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of cracking a planet in half. They were equipped with reality stability anchors designed to prevent exactly the kind of dimensional manipulation the humans had demonstrated. The fleet launched from hidden bases throughout Council space, converging on the Nexus Chamber's location near Earth. Each ship bristled with weapons that could sterilize entire solar systems. Their captains were the most experienced warriors in the galaxy, veterans of 1,000 campaigns against rebellious species. Admiral Kiwu was drinking coffee in the human quarters when Dr. Kim Nayeon brought him the news. "Admiral, our monitoring stations are detecting massive fleet movements throughout Council space. It looks like they're sending everything they have." Kiwu set down his cup and checked his chronometer. "How long until they arrive?" "At their current speed, approximately 6 hours," Nayeon replied. "Sir, there are 300 ships. Each one is larger than anything humanity has ever built." "I see," Kiwu said calmly. "Please send a message to Colonel Yoon and Commander Lee. Tell them the Council has decided to provide us with a practical demonstration opportunity." What Kiwu didn't mention was that humanity had detected the fleet's launch exactly 17 minutes after it began, not through conventional sensors, but through the dark matter ripples created by the massive ships moving through space-time. Captain Park Minji had been monitoring the situation from the human vessel's bridge. When the fleet reached the halfway point of their journey, she decided to greet them personally, but she didn't use radio communication. Instead, she stepped through dark matter space and appeared simultaneously on the bridge of all 300 ships. The effect was immediate and devastating to alien morale. Every captain, every crew member, every warrior in the entire fleet suddenly found themselves face to face with a small human woman who had somehow materialized in their most secure locations. "Good morning, everyone," Park said politely, her image appearing to speak each ship's native language perfectly. "I'm Captain Park Minji of the Human Space Force. I hope you're all having a pleasant journey." The alien commanders tried to respond, but Park continued talking. "I'm here to deliver a message from Admiral Kiwu. He wants you to know that we appreciate your concern for our negotiations, but we're afraid your arrival might be seen as slightly rude." On the bridge of the lead dreadnought, Supreme War Commander Thexkar tried to order his crew to open fire, but when he looked at his weapons console, he found that all of his planet-killing cannons had been transformed into beautiful flowering plants. The targeting systems now displayed helpful gardening tips instead of firing solutions. "What have you done to my ship?" Thexkar roared. "Oh, we haven't hurt your ship at all," Park replied cheerfully. "We've just temporarily reimagined your weapons as something more peaceful. I hope you like the flowers. They're a hybrid species that Dr. Taehyun developed. They should bloom beautifully in about 6 hours." Throughout the fleet, similar transformations were taking place. Weapons became gardens. Hull armor shifted to lovely shades of pink and lavender. Ship computers began playing human music instead of tactical data. "This is impossible," Thexkar whispered. "Our ships have reality anchors. Nothing should be able to alter our physical structure." "Your reality anchors are very impressive," Park agreed, "but they're designed to prevent changes to normal matter. We're working with dark matter, which exists in a completely different dimensional framework. Your anchors can't stop changes to something they can't detect." Commander Lee Hyunwoo decided to take the educational demonstration one step further. Using the Phantom Strike's advanced dark matter manipulation systems, he reached across space and time to show the fleet commanders something that hadn't happened yet. Suddenly, every bridge screen in the World Killer Fleet began showing the same images. Documentary-style footage of the fleet's defeat, complete with commentary and upbeat human music. The aliens watched themselves fleeing in panic, while human voices provided helpful explanations of what was happening. "As you can see," Lee's voice narrated over the impossible footage, The World Killer Fleet's conventional weapons proved completely ineffective against humanity's dark matter defense systems. Note how the alien commanders maintain their dignity, even while their ships are being converted into mobile gardens. The footage showed events that were supposedly happening in the future, but the details were so accurate and so realistic that the alien commanders began to doubt their own perceptions of time and causality. "This is a psychological attack," Thexkar announced to his crew. "These images are fake. They're trying to break our morale." That's when Dr. Choi Tae-hyun decided to provide the final demonstration. From his position aboard the Nexus chamber, Tae-hyun reached out with his consciousness and touched the dark matter substrate surrounding each of the World Killer Fleet's home planets. With careful precision, he began making improvements to their solar systems. Every red dwarf star that provided warmth to a council world suddenly became a beautiful blue giant, flooding those planets with perfect light and comfortable temperatures. Gravity fields were adjusted for optimal comfort, making everyone feel exactly the right weight. Atmospheric compositions were enhanced to provide the most pleasant breathing experience possible. The changes were completely harmless and actually beneficial. But the message was terrifyingly clear. Humanity could remake or unmake any world in the galaxy without even leaving their ships. "Attention, World Killer Fleet." Tae-hyun's voice filled every bridge in the alien armada. "This is Dr. Choi Tae-hyun speaking from the diplomatic vessel. I've taken the liberty of upgrading your home systems to provide better living conditions for your families." He paused to let that sink in. "Please don't be alarmed by the improvements. Your stars are now more efficient, your gravity is more comfortable, and your air is easier to breathe. Consider it a gift from humanity to show our good intentions." Another pause. "Of course, if you prefer your old red dwarf stars and uncomfortable gravity, I can change everything back. Or I could make different adjustments. Really, the possibilities are endless when you can manipulate the fundamental forces that hold matter together." Supreme War Commander Thexkar stared at his tactical display, which now showed real-time images of his home planet bathed in beautiful blue starlight. His family lived on that world. His children were breathing air that had been altered by human technology he couldn't understand or defend against. "What do you want?" he whispered. Dr. Kim Naeon provided the answer by demonstrating humanity's most terrifying capability, the ability to read minds through dark matter resonance. "You're wondering if we can hear your thoughts?" Naeon's voice said gently inside Thexkar's head. "The answer is yes, but only when we're paying attention. Your mental patterns create ripples in the dark matter substrate, just like everything else conscious beings do." Thexkar tried to think of something else, but Naeon continued. "You're thinking about your daughter's birthday party next week. You were planning to give her a model spacecraft. That's very sweet. You're also wondering if we're going to hurt your family. We're not. Humanity doesn't make war on children." Throughout the fleet, similar conversations were taking place as human consciousness touched alien minds. Not invasively, not harmfully, but with enough precision to make it clear that privacy itself no longer existed when humans were involved. "You're afraid?" Admiral Kiwoo's voice suddenly filled every ship in the fleet. "That's understandable. You've spent your entire careers believing that bigger weapons and stronger armor could solve any problem. Now you're facing something that makes those things irrelevant. But here's what you need to understand," Kiwoo continued. "We're not your enemies. We're not conquerors. We're just people who want to live our lives in peace. The question is whether the galactic community is prepared to let us do that." Supreme War Commander Thexkar looked around his bridge at his crew, all of whom were staring at him with expressions of complete bewilderment. Their greatest weapons had been turned into gardens. Their most secure ships had been invaded by thoughts and voices that came from nowhere. Their homeworlds had been casually improved by beings who could reshape reality itself. "Fleet command to all ships," Thexkar said quietly into his communicator. "Stand down all weapons. Assume peaceful formation. We are returning to base for new orders." The deadline was only 3 days away when Admiral Han Kiwoo sent his message to the Galactic Council. The transmission was broadcast on all standard diplomatic frequencies, translated into every known galactic language. To the honorable members of the Galactic Council, Kiwoo's voice was calm and respectful. "This is Admiral Han Kiwoo of the Human Space Force. We have considered your generous offer carefully, and we would like to discuss terms. We request permission to send a diplomatic delegation to the Nexus Chamber for formal negotiations." In the crystal halls of the council chambers, Speaker Vorthak felt a surge of satisfaction. This was exactly how it always went. The primitive species would bluster and posture for a while, then reality would set in and they would surrender properly. Of course, Vorthak replied magnanimously. The council is always willing to hear reason from those wise enough to accept galactic law. You may bring a delegation of no more than 5 individuals. We will expect your arrival within 2 standard rotations. What Vorthak didn't know was that Dr. Choi Taehyun was already aboard the human diplomatic vessel as it prepared to jump to council space. But Taehyun wasn't traveling as a scientist anymore. For the first time in human history, he was functioning as something entirely new. A dark matter architect. The journey to the Nexus chamber took 12 hours by conventional faster-than-light travel. Admiral Kiwoo, Captain Park Minji, Dr. Kim Nayeon, and 2 diplomatic aides made the trip in what appeared to be a standard human vessel. The council's sensors detected nothing unusual about the ship or its passengers. They were very wrong. As their shuttle entered the massive crystal structure of the Nexus chamber, Dr. Taehyun placed his hand against the wall and let his consciousness expand into the dark matter substrate. What he felt there made him smile. Interesting, he murmured to Nayeon. This entire structure is held together by dark matter manipulation. The aliens have been using it for millions of years, but they never realized what they were actually doing. Can you work with it? Nayeon whispered back. Taehyun's smile widened. Work with it? I can make it dance. The formal reception took place in the Grand Assembly Hall, where representatives from 847 different species gathered to witness humanity's surrender. The air buzzed with hundreds of different languages as aliens discussed how to divide up Earth's resources. Speaker Vorthak stood at the center of the chamber, his 6 arms spread wide in a gesture of benevolent authority. Welcome, humans, to the heart of galactic civilization. We trust you have come to accept the wisdom of council law. Admiral Kiwoo stepped forward and bowed respectfully. We have indeed come to discuss the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. However, we feel there may be some misunderstandings that need to be clarified. Misunderstandings? Vorthak's tone became slightly less friendly. What misunderstandings could there possibly be? The council's terms were quite clear. Oh, they were very clear, Kiwoo agreed. But I think you may have misunderstood what humanity actually is. Before Vorthak could respond, Dr. Taehyun stepped forward. May I demonstrate? Without waiting for permission, Taehyun placed both hands against the crystal wall of the chamber. His consciousness flowed into the dark matter matrix that held the entire structure together. With a thought, he began to reshape the walls themselves. The crystal surfaces rippled like water, then reformed into transparent displays showing scenes from across the galaxy. But these weren't random images. They were memories pulled directly from the dark matter substrate, showing the true history of the Council's protection system. Gasps and cries filled the chamber as the aliens saw images of their own species being conquered, enslaved and eventually driven to extinction by previous advanced civilizations. The Council's protection system wasn't new. It was a cycle that had been repeating for millions of years. Impossible, Vorthak whispered. No one can manipulate the chamber's structure. It's protected by quantum locks and reality anchors. Quantum locks? Taehyun laughed. You're thinking too small. I'm not manipulating quantum fields. I'm reshaping the dark matter substrate that gives quantum fields their meaning. Captain Park Minji stepped forward with a datapad in her hand. While Dr. Taehyun is providing your history lesson, I should mention that we've been monitoring your space for the past several weeks. Did you know you have 47 human warships currently positioned throughout Council territory? The chamber erupted in alarm. Council members began shouting in dozens of languages while their security forces activated scanning protocols. Your sensors can't detect them, Park continued calmly. They're not hiding in normal space. They're distributed across multiple dimensional layers. Think of it as parallel parking in parallel universes. This is preposterous. Vorthak's voice rose to a shriek. Humans are a primitive species. You barely have interstellar travel. Dr. Kim Nayeon stepped forward with her own datapad. That's where you made your biggest mistake. You assumed that technological advancement follows the same path for every species. You built bigger ships, stronger weapons, faster engines. Very impressive, but very limited. She gestured to the displays that Taehyun had created, which now showed real-time sensor data from human ships throughout the galaxy. Humans took a different approach. We didn't try to build better tools. We learned to become the tools ourselves. Every human being is a potential reality manipulation node. Our consciousness interacts directly with the fundamental forces of the universe. 8.2 billion humans, Admiral Kiwu added quietly. 8.2 billion individual dark matter architects, and we're all connected to each other through the same substrate that connects everything else in the universe. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. If humans could manipulate dark matter, and dark matter made up 85% of all matter and energy in the universe, then humans could potentially reshape reality itself. You're bluffing, Vorthak said, but his voice lacked conviction. If humans had such powers, you would have used them already. Commander Lee Hunwoo's voice suddenly filled the chamber, though no communication device was visible. Admiral, this is Commander Lee reporting from the Phantom Strike. We've been monitoring the negotiations. Should I provide a demonstration of our capabilities? Please do, Commander, Kiwu replied. What happened next broke every law of physics that the Council thought they understood. Commander Lee didn't just communicate with the chamber. He appeared in the chamber, not as a hologram or a projection, but physically present, having stepped through dark matter space like walking through a door. Good afternoon, everyone, Lee said politely, looking around at the hundreds of shocked alien faces. I hope you don't mind me dropping in. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd say hello. How? Vorthak could barely speak. How are you here? You were on a ship in deep space. Distance is a relative concept when you can fold space-time, Lee explained. From my perspective, your chamber and my ship are in the same location. I just chose to step from one to the other. Dr. Taehyun decided to drive the point home. With a casual gesture, he temporarily relocated the entire Nexus chamber, complete with all 847 Council representatives, from its position at the galaxy's core to a stable orbit around Earth's moon. Through the crystal walls, the aliens could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. The sight was beautiful and terrible, because it meant that humanity had just moved the most secure structure in the galaxy, without even trying hard. This is just a temporary relocation, Taehyun said cheerfully. I thought you might enjoy a better view while we talk. Don't worry, I'll put you back when we're finished. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the automatic translation system seemed to have stopped working as every species tried to process what they had just witnessed. Now then, Admiral Kiwu said into the silence, shall we discuss the real terms of humanity's relationship with the galactic community? Speaker Vorthak looked around at his fellow council members, all of whom were staring at the humans with expressions of absolute terror. For the first time in the Council's history, they were not the most powerful beings in the room. What? What do you want? Vorthak asked. That's a very good question, Kiwu replied. But before we answer it, you need to understand something important. The humans you're negotiating with right now, we're not special. We're not enhanced or modified or artificially improved. We're just ordinary people from an ordinary planet. He gestured toward Earth hanging outside the chamber walls. There are 8 billion more just like us down there, and every single one of them is learning to use abilities that you didn't even know were possible. The question isn't what humanity wants from the galactic community. Admiral Kiwu's expression became very serious. The question is what the galactic community is prepared to do to earn humanity's friendship. The age of the Galactic Council's dominance had just ended. The age of human involvement in galactic affairs was about to begin, and the aliens were beginning to realize that this might be a very different experience than anything they had ever imagined. 3 weeks had passed since the aliens destroyed Pluto. On Earth, the news channel showed endless debates about surrender. Politicians argued in circles while protesters filled the streets. Some demanded immediate submission to save lives. Others called for humanity to fight to the last breath. The aliens watched it all with satisfaction. This was exactly how primitive species always behaved when faced with superior power: fear, confusion, and hopeless defiance followed by inevitable surrender. But in the depths of space, far from Earth's chaos, something was happening that the Galactic Council's sensors couldn't detect. Colonel Yoon Soman floated in the pilot seat of the HMWS Shadowbane, humanity's first operational dark matter warship. Around her, the bridge hummed with energy that existed in dimensions the aliens had never discovered. The ship itself seemed to breathe, its dark hull rippling with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Dark matter field is stable, reported Chief Engineer Park from his station. Consciousness interface is running at full capacity. We're ready for the real test. Through the view screen, Soman could see the Galactic Council's scout fleet. 5 sleek alien vessels had arrived 2 days ago to monitor humanity's inevitable surrender preparations. They hung in space near Mars. Their sensors pointed toward Earth, completely confident in their superiority. Shadow control. This is Shadowbane, Soman spoke into her communicator. We have visual contact with the alien scouts. Beginning demonstration in 30 seconds. From his command center in the asteroid belt, Admiral Kiwu felt his stomach tighten. Everything humanity had worked toward for 5 years came down to this moment. Understood, Shadowbane. You are cleared to proceed. Show them what humans can do. Soman placed her hands on the neural interface and felt the ship's consciousness merge with her own. The dark matter around them responded to her thoughts, bending and flowing like invisible water. She didn't need to move the ship through space. She could move space itself. The Shadowbane didn't accelerate. It didn't use engines or thrusters. One moment it was floating in the asteroid belt, and the next moment it was directly above the alien scout fleet. On the bridge of the lead alien vessel, Commander HFY stared at his sensors in confusion. Detection grid shows nothing. All scopes are clear. His weapons officer, an insectoid being with compound eyes, clicked nervously. Sir, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions directly above us, but there's nothing there. Impossible, HFY growled. These primitive humans don't even have proper faster-than-light travel. Run a full diagnostic on all systems. That's when Soman decided to become visible. The Shadowbane materialized directly above the alien fleet like a dark star being born. Its hull seemed to absorb light itself, creating a shadow against the stars that made the alien ships look like children's toys. HFY's bridge erupted in alarms. Impossible! Where did that come from? How did it get past our sensors? Before anyone could answer, a human voice filled their bridge. The translation was perfect, just like when the aliens had spoken to Earth. But this time, the impossible communication came from the humans. Good morning, Colonel Sumin said politely. I'm Colonel Yoon Soman of the Human Space Force. I hope you're having a pleasant stay in our solar system. The alien commander tried to respond, but Soman continued talking. I'm here to deliver a message from Admiral Kiwu. He wants you to know that we appreciate your patience while we consider your council's offer. However, we've noticed that you've been watching us quite rudely without permission. This is impossible, HFY whispered. Humans don't have translation technology. They can barely leave their own planet. Therefore, Somin's voice continued cheerfully, we've decided to help you get a better view of the galaxy. Consider this a gift from humanity to the Galactic Council. The dark matter around the 5 alien ships began to glow, not with visible light but with something deeper, something that touched the fundamental structure of space-time itself. What are they doing? The weapons officer screamed. Sir, space itself is changing around us. HFY tried to order his ships to attack, but it was already too late. The Shadowbane reached out with invisible hands made of dark matter and simply moved the entire scout fleet. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Moved. In the space of a heartbeat, all 5 alien vessels found themselves floating in empty space 37,000 light-years away in the Andromeda Galaxy. Their sensors showed no damage to their ships, no injury to their crews. They were simply somewhere else entirely. Attached to each ship's hull, they found a small device broadcasting a message in perfect galactic standard. Greetings from humanity. We hope you enjoy your new view of the universe. Please take all the time you need to think about your life choices. When you're ready to have a more polite conversation, just ask nicely and we'll bring you home. P.S. We packed some Earth coffee for your journey. Try it with milk and sugar. Back in the solar system, Colonel Soman smiled as she watched the empty space where the alien fleet had been. Shadow Control, this is Shadowbane. Package delivery complete. The recipient seemed very surprised by their relocation. In his hidden laboratory, Dr. Choi Tae-hyun was explaining the science to Dr. Kim Nayan while they monitored the test results. The aliens think in terms of moving through space, Tae-hyun said, pointing to holographic displays showing dark matter flows. They build faster engines, stronger hulls, bigger weapons, but they never realized that space itself can be manipulated. And we can do this because of consciousness? Nayeon asked, still amazed by the readings she was seeing. Not just consciousness, Tae-hyun grinned. Human consciousness. Every species we've studied thinks in patterns. Logical, predictable, organized patterns. But humans? We're chaotic. We dream impossible dreams. We imagine things that have never existed. We get angry at the universe and decide to change it out of pure spite. He pulled up another display showing the dark matter response patterns around Earth. Look at this. 8 billion human minds, all thinking different thoughts, all dreaming different dreams, all pushing against reality in 8 billion different directions. We're not just connected to dark matter. We're conducting a symphony with it every moment of every day. The aliens have no idea, Naeon whispered. None at all, Taehyun agreed. They see our wars and our pollution and our chaos and they think we're primitive. They don't realize that our chaos is our strength. While they've spent millions of years creating perfect, orderly civilizations, we've spent 10,000 years learning to make the impossible happen through sheer determination and creative stubbornness. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Zephyrian Prime Nexus's command ship, the alien leader was receiving very disturbing reports from his intelligence network. "Sir," his science officer reported nervously, "we've lost contact with Scout Fleet Omega. Their last transmission was from the human solar system. And then, nothing." "Define nothing," Prime Nexus demanded. "Complete absence of signal, sir. Not destroyed, not jammed. They're simply not there anymore. Additionally, our deep space sensors are detecting massive energy anomalies throughout human space." Prime Nexus felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. "What kind of anomalies?" "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match any known technology. They're not fusion, not antimatter, not even quantum manipulation. It's something entirely outside our scientific understanding." Another officer approached with even worse news. "Sir, we're receiving reports from surveillance posts throughout the sector. Human vessels are appearing and disappearing without warning. They're not using hyperspace or wormhole technology. They're just moving without moving." Prime Nexus stared at the tactical display showing the human solar system. For the first time in his long military career, he was looking at something that didn't make sense. "Send a priority message to the Council," he ordered. "Tell them the human situation is more complex than initially assessed. Request additional intelligence resources and perhaps we should reconsider our timeline." But it was too late for reconsideration. At that very moment, 47 more dark matter warships were coming online throughout human space. Each one was crewed by humans who had spent their entire lives being told they were just ordinary people living on a small planet around an average star. They were about to discover that there was nothing ordinary about humanity at all. Commander Lee Hyunwoo, captain of the newly commissioned HMWS Phantom Strike, ran his fingers over the neural interface and felt the vast ocean of dark matter responding to his thoughts. "This is incredible," he whispered to his crew. "We're not just building spaceships. We're creating extensions of human will itself." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Park Min-ho, grinned from his station. "Sir, I'm reading energy signatures from all the other dark matter ships. They're all coming online exactly on schedule." "Excellent," Hyunwoo replied. "Send a message to Admiral Kiwoo. Tell him the hidden arsenal is ready. Phase 2 can begin whenever he gives the word." Throughout the solar system, humanity's true fleet prepared for the next phase of their response to the Galactic Council's ultimatum. The aliens thought they were negotiating with a primitive species armed with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. They had no idea they were facing 8 billion reality architects who had just learned to reshape. The crystal halls of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of alien beings filled the massive chamber, their strange forms glowing under the artificial stars that hung from the ceiling. At the center of it all stood Speaker Vorthak, his 6 arms moving gracefully as he addressed the crowd. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," Vorthak's voice echoed through translators in 800 different languages. "Today we discuss a new species that has caught our attention. They call themselves humans and they live on the 3rd planet of a small yellow star they call Sol." Murmurs filled the chamber. Most council members had never heard of humans before. They were too busy managing the important civilizations, the ones with real technology and proper respect for galactic law. "These humans have been around for only 10,000 years. Vorthak continued. "They still fight wars with each other. They pollute their own planet. They have barely left their solar system, yet somehow they think they deserve to join civilized society." Laughter rippled through the audience. The Zephyrians clicked their beaks in amusement. The crystal beings of Arcturus chimed like broken bells. Everyone agreed that humans sounded completely ridiculous. Therefore, Vorthak raised his voice, we will give them our standard offer. Submit to galactic law, give up their weapons, provide 60% of their population as servants to more advanced species. They have 30 galactic rotations to decide. The vote was quick and unanimous. Nobody objected to adding another primitive species to the protection system. It was good for everyone. The humans would be safe under galactic law, and the advanced species would get useful workers. Everyone won. Far away on a metal platform orbiting Earth, Admiral Han Kiwu read the alien message for the 5th time. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands trembled slightly as he set down the datapad. Sir? Captain Park Minji stood at attention beside his desk. What are your orders? Kiwu looked out the window at Earth spinning below them. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. 8 billion people living their lives completely unaware that aliens had just told them to surrender or die. Get me President Chen on the emergency line, Kiwu said quietly. Then contact all fleet commanders. Tell them we have a situation. The alien message had been simple and direct. Humanity had 30 days to surrender completely or face the consequences. No negotiation, no compromise. Submit or be destroyed. 3 days later, the demonstration began. Captain Park Minji watched from the bridge of the ESA Defiance as 12 enormous ships appeared near Pluto. Each one was the size of a small moon. Their surfaces covered in what looked like living tissue. They pulsed with strange lights and moved without any visible engines. Bioships, reported Lieutenant Yoon from the sensor station. I've never seen anything like them. They're not just mechanical. They're alive. The lead ship, larger than the others, began to glow. A beam of pure energy shot out and touched Pluto's surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire dwarf planet simply stopped existing. No explosion, no debris. 1 second it was there. The next second there was only empty space. The alien commander's voice filled every radio, television, and communication device on Earth and throughout the solar system. The translation was perfect, delivered in every human language at once. I am Zephyrian Prime Nexus, first claw of the Galactic Council fleet. You have seen what happens to those who resist galactic law. Your planet Pluto is gone. Your outer settlements are defenseless. Submit now or watch your worlds disappear one by one. The transmission ended. The 12 bioships hung in space like sleeping giants, waiting for humanity's answer. In secret facilities hidden throughout the Kuiper Belt, Dr. Choi Tae-hyun worked frantically in his laboratory. Coffee cups and energy drink cans covered every surface. Holographic displays showed equations that would make most human scientists cry. Sir, you need to sleep, his assistant Dr. Kim Nayan said from the doorway. You've been working for 72 hours straight. Tae-hyun didn't look up from his calculations. Sleep is for people who aren't trying to save the human race, Nayeon. Besides, I think I'm close to something. For the past 5 years, Tae-hyun had been working on humanity's most classified project. While the rest of the world focused on fusion drives and quantum computers, his team had been studying something much stranger, dark matter. Most people thought dark matter was just invisible stuff floating around in space. They were wrong. Dark matter was everywhere, connecting everything, responding to the strangest force in the universe. Consciousness itself. Look at this. Tae-hyun pointed to a swirling pattern on his screen. Every time we run tests with human volunteers, the dark matter patterns change. Not just a little bit. They completely reorganize themselves. Nayeon frowned at the data. That's impossible. Dark matter doesn't respond to biological processes. That's what we thought. Tae-hyun smiled for the first time in days. But we were thinking too small. It doesn't respond to biology. It responds to consciousness, to thoughts, to emotions, to the things that make us human. He pulled up another display showing energy readings from around Earth. Every human dream, every moment of creativity, every flash of anger or love or determination sends ripples through the dark matter substrate. We've been unconsciously shaping reality our entire existence. And now, Nayeon asked, though she was starting to understand. Now we learn to do it on purpose, Tae-hyun said. The aliens think we're primitive because we fight wars and pollute our planet. They don't understand that those same traits, that chaos and unpredictability, and sheer bloody-minded stubbornness, might be exactly what's needed to master the fundamental forces of the universe. In another hidden facility, Colonel Yoon Soman ran through final checks on humanity's first prototype. The ship didn't look like much from the outside, just a small dark hull covered in strange crystalline structures, but inside it hummed with power that conventional sensors couldn't detect. Dark matter engines online, reported the chief engineer. Consciousness interface responding normally. All systems ready for test flight. Soman strapped herself into the pilot's seat and placed her hands on the neural interface. The ship's systems connected directly to her mind, and suddenly she could feel the dark matter flowing around them like an invisible ocean. "This is Shadow Control to Shadowbane," came Kiwoo's voice over the radio. "You are cleared for test flight. Be careful out there, Colonel." "Understood, Admiral," Soman replied. Beginning dark matter jump in 3, 2, 1. The universe folded around them. Instead of moving through space, they moved space itself. In less than a heartbeat, they traveled from the Kuiper Belt to Jupiter's orbit. "Jump successful," Soman reported, her voice filled with wonder. "Dark matter manipulation is working perfectly. The aliens have no idea what's coming." Back on Earth, the world's leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Most wanted to surrender. The alien demonstration had been clear enough. Humanity had no weapons that could threaten ships capable of destroying planets. But Admiral Kiwoo had requested one more week before making any decisions. Just 1 week to explore other options. The aliens had given humanity 30 days to surrender. They had no idea that humanity had spent the last 5 years preparing for this exact moment. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species armed with chemical, rockets, and nuclear weapons. They were about to learn that humans had been playing with forces they couldn't even detect. The countdown to humanity's response had begun.